was revealed, give unto the orphans their wealth. Exchange not the good for the bad, nor absorb their wealth into your own wealth. Lo, that would be a great sin. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala corrected that situation. The wealth belongs to the orphan, so when he reaches the age where he can manage it himself, it should be given to him. And you, although you're the guardians, you should not take anything from that wealth. You should not mix it with your own. It would be a great sin. Of course, we cannot go into details. There are many other details or explanations that we need to understand, because in this world there are many orphans, and any one of us can become a guardian of an orphan. They may be our own nephew or niece, or they may be some from a different family. But as long as we are in that position, we have to know what are the rules and regulations. And can we, for example, invest their money for them? What can we do with it? Can we take anything? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the surah, if a person is rich, that is, he doesn't need the wealth, that money from the orphan, then he should not take anything from it. But if he is poor, if the guardian is poor, and he needs money, so he can take from the money of the orphan within reason. There are lots of details concerning these matters, which if you happen to be the guardian of an orphan, you should do. The next ayah states, وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تُقْسِطُوا فِي الْيَتَامَى. And if you fear that you will not deal fairly with the orphans, marry of the women who seem good to you, 2 or 3 or 4. And if you fear that you cannot do justice, then one only, or one of the captives that your right hands possess. Thus, it is more likely that you will not do injustice. And to understand the background of this ayah, in fact, it is difficult to understand the ayah without knowing the background of it, right? So we go back to the Sira of the Prophet ﷺ to understand that. And what is reported is that a man had an orphan girl under his care. He was the guardian, and she had wealth. And he married her not because of her interest in her, but because he was interested in the wealth, in her wealth. And so he married her. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayah. If you fear that you will not deal fairly with the orphans, marry of the women who sing. In other words, don't marry them. Don't marry the orphans under your care. But marry other women, 2, 3, or 4, up to 4 you can have, right? Who seem good to you. Then if you fear that you cannot do justice to all of them, if you have more than one wife and you cannot do justice to all of them, that is equal treatment and so on, then only one, or what your right hands possess. And that is more likely that you will not do injustice. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is defending the orphan, and here it is the orphan girls, ensuring that no injustice should be done against them. Of course, this person complied with the dictates of the ayah. Another verse, this is probably verse 4 or verse 5, وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى, which is the entire word meaning, prove the orphan. This is the translation I have. Prove the orphans, which means test them. Test them when they reach marriageable age. So if they can bear responsibilities, if you see them to be able to bear responsibilities, that is, whether it is a responsibility of marriage or on managing their own wealth, whatever it is. If you find them of sound judgment, deliver over unto them their fortune. Give them their money. And devour it not by squandering and in haste, lest they should grow up or that is before they should grow up. Do not squander their wealth. Do not take it and utilize it and sorts of purposes and so on, before they grow up, that is. And whoever of the guardians are rich, let them abstain from taking any of the property of the orphans, and whoever is poor, let him take thereof in reason. I already mentioned this in connection with the previous Sabab al-Nuzul, or cause of revelation. And when you deliver up their fortune unto them, have the transaction witnessed in their presence. Allah sufficeth as a reckoner. So there are these minute details, or these great details that the Quran goes into, so don't think that they are not necessary. When you give over the wealth of the orphan to them, call witnesses. Make sure that they are witnesses who see you do that in their presence, that is, in the presence of the orphan. You give the orphan their wealth, and make sure that you have witnesses to testify to that you have handed over their wealth to them. The orphan cannot afterwards come and claim that you did not give them their wealth, right? And problems cannot occur. Where money is concerned, the problems always occur. Between family members even, right? And here, this person may be a family member of yours, this orphan, as I mentioned, it could be your niece or nephew, but it could also be somebody who's outside of the family. Whoever it is, make sure that you observe these matters, which is, and having witnesses, and that is also prescribed in other financial transactions. Just a few more, some ayah that I did not recite, but they come, لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا تَرَكَ الْوَالِدَانِ وَالْأَقْرَبُونَ. Unto men belongs a share of that which parents and their kindred leave, and unto women a share of that which parents and their kindred leave, whether it be little or much. A legal share, nasiban mafruda, a legal share that is legal according to Islamic law. So why was this ayah revealed? It was revealed concerning a person, Aus ibn Thabit, one of the Sahaba. When he died, he left his wife, a wife, that is one wife, and 3 daughters, and his nephews, 2 of his nephews, that is the sons of, actually the 2 sons of his uncle, that is Aus, the uncle of Aus. They came and they took the property that he left behind, and they did not give any of it to his wife and his 2 daughters. So here again, it is they are related to each other. The 2 sons of his uncle come and they take all of the wealth, and they do not give anything to the wife of the deceased or the 2 daughters of the deceased. And in the days of what is reported also, what is mentioned in this situation, is that in the days of Jahiliyyah, the women would not inherit anything, nor the children. And the wealth would go to some near relative who is a fighter, a person who can fight in battle and so on. So this is why the 2 sons of the uncle came and they took all of the wealth. But this was what was practiced in the days of Jahiliyyah. And you can see how the laws of Jahiliyyah wronged the people, especially the women. So then this matter was reported to the Prophet ﷺ. The complaint was made. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayah. لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا تَرَكَ الْوَالِدَانِ وَالْأَقْرَبُونَ وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا تَرَكَ الْوَالِدَانِ وَالْأَقْرَبُونَ مِمَّا قَلَّ مِنْهُ أَوْ كَثُرَ نَصِيبٌ مَفْرُوضًا. Unto men, that is the men of the family, belongs a share of that which parents and their kindred leave, and unto women a share of that which parents and their kindred leave, whether it be little or much. So even if it is a big amount, a large amount, the women should have their rightful share, and it is legally binding, Islamically legally binding. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this, and of course, I'm not sure, I think that the two sons of the uncle, they gave back the wealth, they gave it to those who are supposed to receive it, the wife and the two daughters of the deceased. So there are several things you would notice here. We can't go into all the details because this talk is very limited, the time is very limited. But there are so many things for us to study, so many things for us to understand from the Sirah. And we will not understand the Quran completely unless we go to the Sirah and study the Sirah and try to understand what was going on in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was an Islamic community, of course, in Medina. And Islamic laws were coming down, were being revealed. And Islamic laws were being practiced and put into effect and so on. But the society was like any other society where they had inherited things from the past, and that is perhaps what they were still applying until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought a new law that changed the things. And many of those old laws or old practices of the days of Jahiliyyah were not proper. Perhaps there was injustice in those laws and problems in other ways in those laws. But they would continue to practice those laws as long as they were not prohibited from applying them. So this is what you see that some of them did. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came and corrected that situation, revealed some ayat. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not reveal things and make changes to what the people were doing until something happened, as you would probably know. This is how the entire Quran was revealed. It is after things happened, maybe wrong things that needed to be corrected, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reveal verses to correct that situation. Not because, not in order to condemn the people who were doing the wrong, because they were Muslims and they were part of the Islamic society and so on, and perhaps they were trying their best to apply Islamic laws to themselves and to others, and to do all of the best things possible. They were coming to the Masjid, performing Salah behind the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so on. But what they had inherited, all of that was not necessarily correct. And so sometimes these things had to be corrected. And you would see the compliance of most of them. Sometimes a person might still be like in the state of Jahiliyyah and refuse to comply with the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the vast majority of them were sincere in their practice of Islam, and as soon as some ayat were revealed, correcting them, they would correct themselves. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not reveal these ayat in order to condemn them and say they're doomed or they're damned because of these things that they have been doing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses every situation, only when it becomes a practical situation, something that actually happens, and then to correct it so that everybody can see in a very, very clear way what these ayat are referring to, what they are talking about, and what is the law or the practice that you should be establishing, from that time onwards. Then, of course, all of those who immediately, they put the laws of the Quran into practice. They were so blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have these verses revealed to them and correct them so that they can change themselves and so on. We have another blessing, the same blessing, but in a different way. The Quran is already with us. So all we have to do is read the Quran, understand it, and change our lives and put it into practice. Every law, every teaching that we see in the Quran, every aspect of guidance. Hudan lin-nas, entire Quran is guidance for mankind, especially guidance for the muttaqeen, hudan lil-muttaqeen. So if we want to be muttaqeen, we want to acquire taqwa, this is it. The Quran is showing us the way to do that. We go, we look at the seerah, and we compare, what the Quran says, and then the seerah, and how the Sahaba responded and so on. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us like them. أقول قولي هذا